Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the FSB's Business Without Barriers webinar. This is the first of 3 that we're doing on the back of our report called Business Without Barriers, which looks at disabled entrepreneurship and the joys and challenges of starting and growing a business. We do have 2 more events, as you may have seen on that slide. That slide will be repeated later in the session if you missed it. But you can find all our events by going onto the FSB's website and also by looking up on our FSB app, if indeed you have that. The way we're going to be doing this today, if you've been on Zoom before, you may be wondering, you may be trying to put the details into the chat box. We're not using the chat function today because I know our speakers can find that a little bit distracting when messages are coming in while they're trying to talk, but we do very much want your questions and answers. You'll see at the bottom of your list there, a little Q&A box. So if you put your questions in there, then I will do my best to ask them on your behalf at the end of our 3 talks. The way we're doing it is we're going to be inviting our 3 speakers to each do presentations of probably about 10 minutes each, maybe a little minute either side of that. And hopefully you'll find plenty of advice and support to help you, either if you are a disabled entrepreneur, whether you're starting or growing a business, or indeed you just want to know how you can be more helpful and supportive to those with that situation. It hopefully will be very interesting and it's going to be varied as well. 2 of our speakers, Mark and Nikki, have both had different health conditions affect them at very much different stages of their lives, but both are extremely successful businesses. And between Nikki and also Mark, who will be kicking it off, we will invite Paul from the British Business Bank to give some advice about financial support that you may be able to get if you're a disabled entrepreneur or you just want to know more about financial support generally. So without further ado, I will invite Mark to kick us off. As you can see, this event is being interpreted, and if you can't stay the whole time, or you want to watch it again later, or indeed you want to recommend it to other people, we are going to be recording the session and it will be available on our FSB on-demand site, probably within about 2 or 3 days. So please look out for that. So without further ado, keep those questions coming in, and I'll hand over to our first speaker, Mark Esho. Mark, over to you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm just going to share my presentation. So can everyone see that? If I can just have a thumbs up, that would be fantastic. Yes, okay, super. Right, so just a brief introduction. I've been in business now for 21 years, actually 22 years. My first company is called Easy Internet Services. My second company is called Easy Internet Solutions. I've got other businesses as well. I've won a number of business awards, and this year I was awarded an MBE. So what I'm going to do is just to give you a bit of background. So spare 1 second. At the age of 5, I was paralyzed from the neck down with the polio virus. So the last pandemic, possibly most people actually won't know this, was the polio virus. And unfortunately, I caught polio after it had been completely eradicated. So no one really knows how I managed to get it. I actually got it here in Leicester. So I spent many years in hospital actually trying to recover. By the age of 9, I'd made a partial recovery, but what was common then is that irrespective of your disability, you were put in a special needs school. So from the age of 9, I was put in a special needs school, which my parents didn't like at all. So that was in Ashfield in Leicester. So my parents then decided to come from Nigeria to actually take me back to, to actually come from Nigeria to take me back to Nigeria, and I was put into a mainstream school, which I didn't like at the time, was probably one of the best things that possibly happened to me, is I was actually forced to go to a mainstream school. So one of my biggest challenges, and this is a challenge that a lot of disabled people face, I think it's a lot better now, was accessing education, because most colleges, most universities actually weren't very accessible. And as a result, with myself as a part-time wheelchair user, my education was very fragmented. but I did end up eventually with a master's degree in business. So naively, I thought, okay, I've got a master's degree in business, I should be able to get a job. But unfortunately, that wasn't the case, and I must have applied for over 100 jobs, but then got rejected. And eventually managed to get a job. Then because of my polio, is what it's called, post polio syndrome, which is very similar to long COVID, I was forced to quit my job, and that's when that's when I decided to go into business. And I remember going to the bank manager. He's actually someone I knew from my previous job, asking for a business loan, and I was literally laughed out of the bank. I was told that I had no experience of setting up a business, and bluntly told that my chances of success were actually pretty low. And I think one of the issues that we've got as disabled people wanting to set up in business, I know we've actually looked at some of the other issues, is that credibility gap. And also as a black person as well. So so that makes things probably 3 times as worse. So moving on, some of the issues that I've found over the years, both in employment and also in business as well, is that 22% of employers have got a disability bias. And this was actually in the Independent newspaper in 2018. The exact words they used was a bit harsher than that, but I'm not going to repeat it. 67% of people in general have got a disability bias, and 6 out of 10 actually express concerns about actually employing disabled people in a job. Now, as an entrepreneur, these are the same people that are likely to be your customers and also your suppliers. So going back to my business journey, before I actually come on to some of my solutions, I set up Easy Internet Services, which is a digital marketing agency, in 2000. In 2004, I set up a web hosting company called Easy Internet Solutions, which is actually based in Bournemouth. And we compete against the likes of GoDaddy and 123, which obviously we're not as big. 2 years ago, I decided to step down from my businesses and to work on something that I'm very passionate about. And my passion is to get disabled people into jobs and also into business. I've seen hopefully everyone's seen the FSB report, which is actually quite comprehensive. But I think there's some other underlying issues that need to be addressed before we can get more disabled people into business. I think number one is low self-esteem and confidence and poor mental health. A lot of disabled people, I know the FSB report says it's 46%. I think it's a bit higher than 46% in terms of the number of disabled people that have got mental health issues. I probably say it's probably about 60 or 70%. I think that fundamental issue needs to be addressed or needs to be looked at before we start encouraging disabled people to get into business. Probably some sort of coaching, some sort of mentorship that's actually going to help people. Number two, access to business education. Because like myself, some disabled people were forced to go to special needs schools. They haven't had the opportunity to go to mainstream schools. So as a result, their education has fallen behind. So one of the things I'm doing at the moment is I'm doing an academic study with Leicester University, and we're looking at the key competencies that disabled people need to be successful in business. And hopefully from that, we'll come up with a course that disabled people can go on before they actually start their business. And lastly, a support network. According to it's actually called D-Entrepreneurs, only 15% of disabled people got a support network. It's very, very hard to be in business if you haven't got that support network. So what I've done over the last couple of years is, because there's no solutions for disabled people in general. I've set up my own foundation. We're still going for the Charity Commission at the moment. And what we do is we offer cash, we offer business support. It's called the Circle Foundation, is because I've got lawyers, I've got accountants, I've got business coaches, I've got web designers, I've got a whole raft of businesses who are willing to support disabled people wanting to go into business. And most importantly, mentorship as well. So I'll be providing that mentorship on a one-to-one basis. And one of the things that I'll be doing is addressing those three issues, as I said from the very beginning, even before we give them the funding, is tackling any potential issues with confidence or mental health, business education, and the support network. And that's me done on my presentation. If anyone wants to learn a bit more about me, you can go to my website, markesho.com. Here's my book as well. If you don't mind me plugging my book, it's on Amazon. It's called I Can, I Will. And that's my end of my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Mark. That was excellent and quite a journey. Just one quick question. I will remind everybody, please put your questions in the Q&A. I can see some coming in there. Did you start your own business simply because you were not struggling, but you were finding it hard to work for other people? Or was it always your ambition to run your own business?
Well, I've got post-polio syndrome, which is similar to long COVID. So it causes chronic fatigue and muscle ache. So as a result, I had to quit my job. And that's the reason why I went into business, because I needed that flexibility to deal with my condition. I can't work a normal 9 to 5.
Right.
But I can work a 60-hour week if I could do my own hours.
Perfect. I think a lot of people watching this will definitely agree with that. Well, you'll all have chances to meet Mark again later in the session, where we'll get some questions, which will be fantastic. So now let's hand over to our second speaker, Paul. Now, Paul will look at this from a slightly different angle, but when any business starts or wants to grow, finance is very important, and not least so for those who are disabled entrepreneurs. So it gives me great pleasure to hand over to Paul. Paul Jones, over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, Sam, and thanks to the FSB for the report. I thought it was disappointingly enlightening, but that's it's really good to get the messages out. And thanks to Mark for that speech as well. There's quite a lot of resonance in your journey that I've heard from many others. The British Business Bank, for those that don't know, is the UK's economic development bank. So we're not a bank with a checkbook like a Lloyds or Barclays. And our role is to break down barriers in access to finance so that everybody across the UK can access finance. Our mission to drive sustainable growth and prosperity across the UK to enable transition to net zero by improving access to finance. Lovely words. What does it actually mean, and what do we do? We work with the finance community, so 180 partners, where we give them guarantees, funding, and programs. And the mission behind that is that they come out to the market and supply funds and advice and help to you as SMEs in the marketplace. We have a couple of KPIs which are really, really key to this area. We need to create a more diverse finance market, and we need to encourage and enable SMEs. And by that we mean every SME, wherever they sit, and it's the underserved market is an area where we're really focusing, and that comes across to both ethnicity, gender, disabled or vulnerable customers, as FCA quote, and how we can actually start supporting that a lot more. We've invested £10 billion into the UK economy, and all through finance companies, but we know, and the report highlights, that maybe a big percentage of that is going to the same recipients that are probably in the well-served market as opposed to the underserved. One of our key programs is startup loans. So for anybody starting a new business, without bias, we can do £25,000 loans at 6%. To founders, The business needs to be less than 3 years old at the time of applying. And we've done over 90,000 loans at £819 million. And we're really proud of the social mobility and the reach that sits behind that, with all underserved areas being helped. And with that, we give mentoring, and we give support through the Open University. Something I might pick up with Mark after is whether our mentoring is geared properly towards those with disability, and maybe it's an area that we can sort of have a discussion on, Mark, if you're happy to. We've recently started to dig a bit deeper and how we can actually help more. We've signed up with a partnership with Sign Live, so that we can reach those of the deaf community, and we've also got a partnership with RNIB, so we have Braille, audio, large print. All of our the way we reach SMEs and where you can get good advice, and talking to that confidence piece that Mark's already alluded to. We have a finance hub, so within our website, the finance hub leads you on to lots of agnostic information about how to start a business, how to grow a business, different types of funding, and how that may work. And all of that, although it's web-based, if there's any issue with accessibility at all, we have a team behind that will ensure that you have the right facilities, and you can get hold of all that information. That's really, really great for building confidence and for building capability. But we're more keen to how can we actually continue to grow that. We've continued to invest in CDFIs, mutual banking, and there's a real sort of growth in impact investors. So I know one of the recommendations in the FSB report is that we form an angel, a co-angel investment fund. That can be discussed, and things take a little while in government to feed their way through. I have no news on that personally, but what we are doing is working with all angel groups. So we're investing £260 million across the UK into different angel groups, and part of that is discussing, and to win the money, they have to show us how they're going to invest, how they're going to have a broad base. So we're trying to help the wider community to serve. And then with that, we're working with UK Finance. We're also serving through the vulnerable customer FCA guidance, and ensuring that is coming to fruition. And in fact, only this week I sat down with 2 different tech companies where they're forming tech answers to under Tech for Good, ways that disabled people can approach, can get better understanding and work through, so that the answers aren't quite here, but they're coming, and there's a big sort of launch behind that. And then finally, I was just going to mention the growth hubs. So across all of our regions, there will be a local growth hub, G1st in Gloucestershire, WECA in Bristol, etc. And all of them have received extensive training, ability to sort of help you to grow the business and to get into the right networks. And I think another thing Mark raised, businesses tend to be more successful when they're networked. They tend to be more successful when they are sharing their ideas and working together. Being an entrepreneur is never an easy route, and there's definitely the support and help of colleagues and peers going through the same journeys is so important. So I'm really keen that you all reach out as correct for you to those sort of angles. We continue to work. We'll continue to launch new products and work with new partners to ensure that we are meeting this underserved market. And here in Bristol, not quite launched, but getting very close. There's 2 angel groups which are just kicking off. One called Inclusive Angels, which, as the name would suggest, is inclusive, and the second is ethical enterprise. Both of which are looking really at how they can bring more money to that underserved market, and we're keen to work alongside them to help them grow that investment side for new businesses. So in ending this part of it, really the Finance Hub is an opening part to really good information, and will also lead to some of our delivery partners, and then the growth hubs, and continue to follow perhaps my own LinkedIn. I'll continue to highlight and promote those businesses that are there to support you. Thank you.
Excellent, thank you, Paul, and excellent advice. And I couldn't agree more about growth hubs. They're a great source of information for businesses of all kinds. Just as a point that Mark mentioned in his piece, that he was virtually laughed out, is the way he described it, by his bank manager when he went for a business loan when he first tried to start a business. Do you feel from your dealings with banks that the climate has changed, that there is a more welcoming and understanding attitude to sort of businesses that you as you describe, are perhaps vulnerable?
Yeah, so I'm going to answer it in two ways, really. So the vulnerable customer parts from the FCA have really fed through the banks. And in fact, my past was in Lloyds Bank, where I worked on it 10 years ago as the first launches. You've always got individuals and policy. So I think the policies within all the banks are really strong. They're well written, they're well presented, they're part of annual mandatory training and things of that nature. So relationship directors are aware. However, when you get to the front, it's a individual process, probably more than a bank process. So a lot of work has gone on to move in that. There is movement for sure, but I'm sure that people in this audience could probably give me individual examples of where it's not improved. I would say overall it's moving in the right direction, and part of where we work is to, you know, back in 2009 we really worked through 4 major banks. We now work through around about 250 finance companies. So that diversity in the market is creating more diverse solutions, more diverse products. But as your report highlights, we're definitely not there, and we've got quite a way to go still.
Excellent, thank you for that. As I say, there'll be plenty of time for questions. It's good to see them coming in. We'll try and read out as many as we can, because obviously your question might be reflected by other people, so we'll certainly get to them towards the end. But we have our third and final speaker now, and I'd like to welcome Nikki. I've known Nikki a little while, and I know that she's got a great story to share and some great advice. So over to you, Nikki, for the third of our talks. Thank you.
Fab, thanks, Sam. Yeah, we have known each other just a little while. So yeah, hey everyone, good to be here. Thanks for the invite from the FSB. So I'd just like to share my story, really, and just some things that helped me along the way. So I'm the co-owner and director of Discover Your Bounce Group. So we specialise in personal wellbeing, in corporate wellbeing, and we have a full service publishing house as well. Personally, I'm an author, a keynote speaker, and I mentor people to help them create a really strong vision and the energy to get there, really. So I'll share why I do what I do through my journey, really. So this was my coffee shop and holistic centre. So I'd, from accounts, I'd gone into sort of more helping people, really knew the value of holistic therapies, and had started a coffee shop and holistic centre in April in 2010. So this had been my vision, my dream. I was so passionate and I was so excited to actually make this business a reality that I just put absolutely everything into it. So I was working 80 to 90 hours a week, probably drinking way too much coffee and eating rather a lot of the cake, I would suggest. But I just really wanted to make this business work. I was just so focused on this. This was my hobby. I was a keen scuba diver. I was a qualified assistant instructor, qualified to dive to 50 meters, had been very experienced. Hadn't actually had time to do this hobby because of the business hours. But when you take your dream business and you take some time away to share, to indulge in your hobby for a weekend, sometimes we forget the impact that stress can have on us as business owners and also on the body. So during that dive in July 2010, I became very unwell. I had the bends. So I had a muscular, skeletal and cerebral bend, and the cerebral bend went on to cause a stroke. So when I looked at my life, I had just turned 40. We had 4 growing up teenagers between myself and my husband. I had a 12-week-old business that needed me. I had no other help. It was a solo venture. And at the time after the stroke, I couldn't use the left-hand side of my body. I had no feeling in my left arm. My speech and memory were affected. And I really had to look at the outlook that I had ahead of me. The neurologist gave me a picture of how my life would be, which didn't fit with being an entrepreneur in business. And he said that I would never dive again, was his kind of prognosis for me. But thankfully, I'm a very stubborn individual, and I'm very proud of that. So I had to really look at my life, my new set of circumstances, and make some adjustments. And I didn't do it overnight. There were some really dark times, and talking about mental health issues, there was a lot of strain on myself, and thankfully I had the support of my family, really. So I really had to adjust. A bit like Mark said, the 9 to 5 didn't work for me. I was in lots of pain, my sleep was affected. So I had to adjust my business, and brought in my daughter as a manager who could do the early starts and kind of do some of the functional stuff for me. I had to ask for help, which I was really bad at doing. I invested in an automatic car because I couldn't drive my manual car anymore. And over that couple of years in that business, I realized that a premises-based business just didn't work for me anymore. So I sold the business for a profit and started Discover Your Bounce, which is kind of what I do today. Very thankfully, within about 3 years, I did make a full recovery. So I still have to be very mindful of my blood pressure, my cholesterol, all those kind of things. I really still do have to watch the effect of stress on me. And I do have some symptoms that come back if I overwork. But it's allowed me to work with other entrepreneurs and just really talk about health and well-being, and then to go into that corporate space and just talk about the effect of stress. But I think, you know, when you are thinking of starting a business, you need to kind of look at your circumstances and look at what works for you. Being creative around, you know, the hours you want to work, and making those adjustments, being flexible, and having that positive mindset of just, I will find the right people that will help me, has definitely helped me on my journey. Just some things to consider, just some points to consider, really. What does good look like? I think so often we just get into, well, I have to work the 9 to 5 and I have to work my business this way. Actually think of that vision. I had to kind of re-engineer, and I wanted a business that would work from anywhere. I wanted a business where I could have flexible hours. So start thinking about, you know, what is your vision? What is your vision in business? What would you like the next 2 to 3 years look like? I think with the pandemic, we've had to kind of look at very short-term things. And, you know, some of the employees that I talk to, I say, what's your vision? And they say, to get to Friday so I can have a glass of wine. And that's as far as their vision goes. So maybe start thinking about that sort of longer term, and what does your business look like within 2 to 3 years? Your well-being. So I know we've all got a to-do list, and I think sometimes, you know, ticking our to-do list has become a bit of an Olympic sport. We really try and, oh, I've got this to do and that to do. And I think as a nation, you know, busy is kind of a badge of honor. So how are you? Oh, I'm busy. Oh, good. Yeah, you know, and my question is, good busy or bad busy? Because there are 2 types. If we're doing the things that we love and we have a plan and we're on track for that, then that's good busy. But being busy just for the sake of it doesn't suit our well-being. So look at your diary. Is there fun on your to-do list? Are you doing things that are good for your physical health and your mental health? So about 2 or 3 weeks ahead, all of my kind of fitness and time to myself is in my diary, and then my work fits around that. And I know definitely in the past, everything revolved around what the business needed. And about midnight, I would start thinking, actually, I'm a bit hungry, and maybe I should eat today. So really focusing on your well-being, because that gives you the physical health, but also the mindset to be able to innovate and do things within your business. And look at your support network. Who do you have around you that can help, that can assist? We've talked about some great schemes and and sort of mentoring things around, but also that support network. I think sometimes when we're an entrepreneur, we don't involve our family in our vision or what we're trying to do. And I know definitely I didn't, and that didn't work for me. Now I'm very pleased to say I have my family behind me and they know what I'm doing, because sometimes we communicate all day in our business world. So when we get home, we just don't necessarily talk about it. And then just thinking about some business tips. What do you want to be known for? So, do you want to be the cheerleader? Do you want to be the great CEO that actually listens to their employees? Do you want to be known for creating that flexible environment and being inclusive and making those adjustments so that someone can excel and thrive in their job? At the moment, we have 2 Kickstart employees who both have mental health challenges, and I'm really proud of the fact that they both feel very supported. So what do you want to be known for within your business? I've put, you don't need to be a lion. Some, with the entrepreneur, it's like this striving entrepreneur. And I always think of Tony Robbins, amazing man, but we don't all need to shout and take center stage to be that cheerleader. Someone said to me, I'm the female version of Tony Robbins, but I'll make a cup of tea with someone and we'll do it together. And I really like that. Be vulnerable in yourself. If you're not having a good day, do find that support. And if you don't know something, I don't know, sometimes there's this kind of preconception that we need to have it all worked out. And I'm 15 years as an entrepreneur, and I learn every single day. I've put breathe. I know we all breathe. But being able to stop and take a breath allows us to just take stock of what we do. And sometimes on a really busy day, I will put reminders in my diary that just say breathe. And I'll just there are some great breathing routines, like breathing in for the count of 6 and holding that for the count of 6, breathing out for the count of 6 and holding the out breath for the count of 6. That really reduces blood pressure. It helps blood flow, it helps the body detox, and it's so simple. We can just do that anytime. And once you've done that, you then may realize that you're hungry, or you need a glass of water, or you need to take a break and step away from the laptop. I think post-COVID, we're seeing so many people doing more hours, more screen time, and that's not necessarily a good thing. And I've put practice, just get good at your craft and get known for the thing that you really want to specialize in. We don't need to be all things to all people. We can get really focused. And I know running 3 businesses now, I do have an amazing business partner, Sharon, but we are super focused on the things that are important to us. And finally, just some confidence tips, really. Don't compare yourself to other people. It's so easy to look on social media and don't believe what you see. Everyone is making it up as they go along. And some people will put things up on social media to try and cheer themselves up and convince them that it is okay. So just, my thing is just to stay in your own lane. I try every day, I ask myself, how can I be a better version of myself than I was yesterday? And that helps me to just stay in my own lane and not scroll through social media and think everyone else is doing it better. Don't give up. Sometimes we've had challenges and there's been points where I've had to question everything, but I'm just so glad that we've kind of stayed the journey. and celebrate those small wins. You know, we get a real dopamine burst in the brain, which is just so good for us when we just celebrate those good things. And if it makes you smile, you get a serotonin hit as well. So all good for, you know, longevity and good health and happiness. We talked about mentoring, but even if it's just your best mate, just get a buddy and kind of talk things through. And if you can, use positive language, because our physiology responds to what we say. So try and use positive language. You know, I am safe, I am well, I do trust myself. Just try and really kind of stay as positive as you can. There's a great book called Flip It by Michael Heppel, and it really talks about how to flip from negatives to positives. And know your why. Why do you do what you do? Because I think when we get busy, sometimes we can forget, and that's when it can become a drudge. But if you can, you know, I know that through our Social Passion Project, we give free mental health awareness training to particularly construction and sort of third sector organisations. And I know there are some people on this planet today as a result of what we did. So know why you do what you do, because that will keep you going. And finally, oh my goodness, gratitude. Gratitude has just been a game changer for me. As I say, when I was in this really dark place, I just had to be grateful that I had a roof over my head and something to eat, and that half of my body worked. And I just really had to get into those gratitudes. And so on a morning and an evening, you know, I when I wake up, I think, you know, today's going to be an amazing day. And I try and say that. I don't say it every day, but I try and say that every day. And then on an evening, think of, you know, if you can think of 10 good things that have happened that day, again, you produce serotonin, which helps you sleep more. And I have gratitude for the stroke, because I was in a whole world of busy and not spending time with the important people in my life. And so now I very much do have my gratitudes in order and remember them often. So that's it from me. Just some places that we can connect. We have 2 free communities on Facebook for the Discover Your Bounce community. We share sort of positive tips, and I go live with motivations and Wellbeing Wednesdays. And yeah, happy to connect with anyone on LinkedIn too.
That's brilliant, Nikki. Thank you so much for that. And I know for a fact that I have a friend of mine called Martin, who I know is on this call and also suffered a stroke in the middle of his business life. And I know he'll be cheering you to the rafters, because there's so many of those things you said he will echo with. What we're going to do now, and I can see we've got plenty in my inbox, is we'll try and go through some of the questions. So we can have all the speakers on the screen, and then we'll just try and put some of the questions to you. Or some of them will be comments, but some will be specific questions. I'll just use people's first names, because for GDPR reasons, that's what we like to do. So some of them will be, as I say, comments, some of them will be more direct questions. But we had a comment from Ian here who said, couldn't agree more on the whole issue of disabled and mental health issues. After 54 years, I had a diagnosis of fibromyalgia. I never could say that. I don't know if someone's got that, but no help with mental health issues. Clara said, I'm a disabled entrepreneur and I set up my business in 2019. I'm current Woman Innovation winner for a project developing a disability awareness app, but we're in need of some extra funding to develop the app further, but we're struggling to know where to go. Does anyone have any advice we could tap into for advice about developing our app? Is there anybody, Paul, anybody that might be able to help with that?
It might be worth me taking that offline, actually, and just having a quick sort of catch up so I understand fully what type of finance and looking for, but happy to engage afterwards. I didn't catch your name, actually. But
okay, well, if you could send another message to the question and answer section, then Paul can see that and make a note of your email. Darren Tudor Green, very similar, said, I've applied for startup loan and was declined.
I've developed apps. So
oh, sorry, Mark, I do apologise. Sorry, Mark, over to you.
No, I was about to say that I've developed apps. So if you want to contact me on LinkedIn, I might be able to offer a bit of advice.
Excellent. That is a good way of getting to all our speakers, by the way. They're all on LinkedIn, Paul, Mark and Nikki as well. Darren has asked, he's applied for startup loan and was declined. as it didn't support his business strategy. Again, that might be one you need to ask directly to Paul via another system. Jacqueline, I think, has made 1 or 2 points. The first one is lovely to join this morning. As FSB member, it's great to see we're looking at this within the entrepreneur ecosystem. She wants to tell people that she's launched, sorry, my screen just went down there. We've launched a report in partnership with Lancaster University, looking about inclusive entrepreneurship. So thank you for that, Jacqueline. An anonymous attendee said, is there assistance to those whose businesses older than 3 years but collapsed due to COVID pandemic, as we've had to restart again as another type of business? Businesses that have been struggling, again, that one might be for you, Paul.
Yeah, so the startup loans was expanded from 2 to 3 years as part of that, but probably not far enough for this case in point. We also have our RLS, so the Recovery Loan Guarantee Scheme, where we work with a number of funders. I think it's about 120, which are all on the websites. So again, I'm happy to connect or use the website to pick a delivery partner that suits where you are locally. So there is some support there. It is going through a normal banking procedure, but we would be happy to guarantee if there's no other security behind it. Recovery Loan Scheme, or RLS, whichever.
Brilliant
terminology.
news there. Ian's asked a question. Perhaps I can ask Nikki and Mark to comment on this one. He said that his company's been going for 5 years, but due to COVID, we've lost over 2 years of trading. So for me, it's like restarting again. Are there any mentoring schemes available to help people like me? Nikki first, then perhaps Mark.
We early days when I shifted into the new business, we were part of the NatWest Business Accelerator, and I know that was the Entrepreneurial Spark Scheme it was called at the time. I don't know what it might be the same now, but I know that, and I know Paul said about some schemes like the Growth Hub and things. So that definitely helped me. But I look back now at the change I made, and the new businesses are just so much better suited to my lifestyle. So I would just say that, you know, in a couple of years, you may look back and really appreciate that this was a great turning point for you, even though it doesn't feel like it at the time.
Thank you. Mark, what do you think about mentoring available for people who feel like they're going to restart their business because of COVID?
I'd say look at the your local Chamber of Commerce. That's always a good resource if if you're a member of that. Also the Business Growth Hub, and there is but if it's actually disability specific in terms of being a disabled entrepreneur, there isn't that much support within the for disabled entrepreneurs at the moment, and that's something that we're looking to do as part of the Circle Foundation, is that we're looking to set up a circle of support whereby established disabled entrepreneurs can help other disabled people.
Excellent. I know we've got some questions about the Circle Foundation as well. And obviously, just as a reminder that the FSB does lots of events, and you're always welcome to our online networking, which is a great way to meet people. But that actually raises a question that Cara has put forward. She said, in regards to business networking, I presume this is face-to-face, there are additional challenges for disabled people to join in on many events because they're inaccessible. Can the panel please comment on the need to consider accessibility when designing, advertising and running events to ensure people with a wide range of impairments are not excluded? Mark, is that something you found?
Oh, absolutely. I find it very difficult at networking events because the moment you're in the wheelchair and someone's looking down on you, the whole dynamics change. Because I can walk, it's slightly different because I can walk as well. I notice that when I'm speaking to people face to face, I don't know, it's almost like that rapport is developed a lot quicker. But when you're in the wheelchair, it's almost like that pity factor kicks in first before you can actually generate, kind of get like a rapport with someone. But in answer to that question, most venues are actually not accessible to disabled people. It's very rarely would you go to a networking event and actually see a disabled person there, obviously visibly disabled person, because obviously there's lots of invisible disabilities. I think most disabilities, about 80% or 87% of disabilities are invisible.
And as a matter of interest, has COVID helped in a funny kind of way, because we are doing so many of these things online now, whereas we'd have been doing this event live 2 or 3 years ago? Has that made it easier for disabled entrepreneurs, do you think, to take part in events like this?
Oh, absolutely, because everything's now virtual. You're not having to ask questions. Okay, is there access to the building? Is there parking? And also those awkward questions. And also, I think now as well, in terms of jobs, I think it's created more opportunities for disabled people to work from home.
Excellent. Moving on to over to Nikki now. There's a question based on your comment, and I know this will resonate with 1 or 2 people. How did you manage running your business when you were suffering with problems with your memory? You're on mute, Nikki. First time I've had to say that.
Still do it. We still do it. Yeah, it was quite difficult early days. I think the things that helped me, having a manager, to be able to, she took over quite a lot of the functional, like the time specific things for me. I found particularly, I would go, like you say, going networking or doing a presentation, I would see a word and then it would just disappear out of my head. So I had to have a sense of humor and just use the words "what's it" and thingy, and just made no excuses for it. I used to feel very guilty if I couldn't find the right word, and had to just get a sense of humor with it. But I also found that the more tired I was, the more stressed I was. And even today, that's something that I will notice. So I had to just make sure that I was well rested. And, if you have got a presentation like this, or if you've got 2 or 3 things, just allowing that sort of rest and recovery time in between. I think it's something that we maybe don't do. We kind of go right on to the next thing. But yeah, the more tired I was, the worse it got.
Excellent. I've had a couple of questions about access to work and what the panelists think about that, the government scheme. Does anybody want to comment on the access to work scheme, and whether you think it's good or bad? Or Mark, is it something that's on your radar?
Absolutely. I find the whole process demeaning. It's arduous, and it's prohibitive. I think the government actually does not really want people to apply, so that's why they make it so difficult. So unless you've got a specialist or someone that specializes in that area that helps you with the application process, it's almost impossible to get.
Wow, that is interesting feedback. Nikki, Paul, is it a scheme that you're aware of? Not so much Paul, Nikki?
Not personally, but I know getting access to help and support, and I know someone put about PIP. My daughter has fibromyalgia and other conditions, and had to fight for a year and get her MP involved in the end, who was very helpful before she could actually get the support she needed. I know it's very difficult, and it can be so easy to just give up in the process, I think. So yeah, hard.
Yeah, very much so. And that's why it's important that we all work together to try and raise these issues with as many people as we can. Interesting one that picked up here from Shania, if I've said that right. How do those of us with invisible disabilities, push through certain biases against us because, in inverted commas, we don't look disabled? Nikki was nodding then. And so Nikki, then perhaps Mark. Invisible disabilities. I think Mark gave a quote about how many people that applies to. People say you don't look disabled. How do you push through that bias?
Again, I've just seen it with my daughter, and I think we need to take that time. Like you say, if you're planning an event, or if you are watching someone who's struggling, I think, again, when we're really busy, we make assumptions, and actually trying to just not make assumptions about people, and just trying to always be kind. That's just all I would kind of add in there. I remember going to an event, and because I was still running events, and I had a car full of stuff to get to my stand, I didn't have a disabled badge, but I had to come out and say to this person, is there anywhere I can park that's closer? And at first he was just really dismissive. No, everyone's got to park here. And then I just said to him, I've had a stroke, I can't do it. And actually at that point, he was then very accommodating and found me a space. But we shouldn't necessarily have to do that, should we? I hope we're changing. Hopeful.
Mark, you must advise people in this situation. They've got an invisible disability. How do they almost convince people that they need support?
It's quite difficult if your disability is invisible. I think a visible disability kind of gives you an advantage that you don't need to explain anything, and I think that's why if you got like an invisible disability, actually communication is key. Is that how do you effectively communicate that to people if your event or whatever you're doing, to actually say this is the additional support that I need.
Yeah, you can almost see people when people park in a disabled spot looking at them to make sure they're inverted commas disabled, and that must be so embarrassing on one level and demeaning on another to people. So that is very worrying. A comment sorry, Paul.
Yeah, just a quick one, really. Just picking up on that. I think for SMEs, there's some more work needs to go ahead. But speaking from my own organisation, 450 people spread across the country. We have an internal body which I sit on called Stronger Together, and we particularly pick a calendar and we go through and we highlight different points, whether that's gender, ethnicity or disabled parts, and what that's doing is you can see the confidence building in certain individuals, but the awareness comes out, and I think the more we do that across other organisations and wider, the more the understanding of each other starts to grow and we improve. And I do think we sit in a far better place in 2022 than we did in maybe 2002, albeit, we're highlighting here and the report's very clear, we've got a lot more to do, but I do think there's more work at hand to sort of highlight these invisible issues and all the rest of it. So there's movement for sure.
Definitely moving. That's good to know. We've got about 6 or 7 minutes left, but I really would want to get as many more questions as we can. So forgive me if I can't, if I don't get to yours, but I'm going up and down the list as we're doing. Comment from David, which is helpful. Not a question, but just to say there's lots of support for entrepreneurs, startups and SMEs at the business and IP centres to be found in main libraries across the UK. I would agree with that. David says he's profoundly deaf and they've helped me no end. So that's great to know, David. And it also gives me an opportunity as well to thank both Karen and Liz, who've been interpreting for us this morning, which has been absolutely brilliant. Jane has commented on something Mark said, that she agrees with Mark's reply about networking very much, and says that Zoom fatigue is now coming up. So she actually does want to get back to face-to-face as soon as she can. Ellie's raised a point as well. I have insomnia disability, and I've asked someone who knows Zoom and Microsoft to add a disability emoji so hosts know people have a disability on Zoom. Practical, I like that as well. Vi, if I said that name right, has said so much of this is resonating, which is good to know. I live with disabilities and chronic conditions, and I'm grateful that my community interest company has survived the pandemic, which has been a huge struggle. Sadly, I'm no longer new at almost 3 years old to qualify for most funding, as I don't earn enough to get them. But she's, it's obviously a lot of businesses suffering from exactly the same. With somebody called Kelly said that she's, Mark, I wouldn't say I'm qualified to mentor startups, but I think I can help with soft support in the field of buddying up, if that fits your model. She will shoot you a request on LinkedIn if you don't mind. I'm sure you won't mind that at all. And actually, Mark, we did have a couple of comments, which I think you might have answered a couple of them, but perhaps those that didn't see them. Very interested in the Circle Foundation and what you're trying to do. It's local at the moment, isn't it? It's not a nationwide thing. Is that the case, or would you like to expand it nationally at some point?
Well, basically, the circle of support comprises of local businesses, mainly within Leicester. Also, I've got De Montfort University. I've got the Business Gateway Hub. And unfortunately, because these businesses are mainly, obviously, within the region, the consensus is that they want to support people within ideally Leicestershire, or worst case scenario, the East Midlands. But we've now opened up the application process, and we are seeing the odd one coming from, you know, on a national basis that we are considering as well.
Excellent. We had a point, Hortense asked whether the green lanyards are helpful. For those that may not be aware, Mark, the green lanyards, well, I think she's referring to letting people know about disability. Is that right?
I'm not an expert in that area, but you know, I just know about it. But again, absolutely, if people want to wear some sort of symbol that allows the general public to know that they're disabled, then that's, you know, that's basically down to them. But it's a matter of personal preference.
Right. Okay. We're literally not going to be able to get all the questions, but there's a nice point here from Kat. The wider business community needs to trust disabled entrepreneurs. We can be successful and bring so much more to the table than their standard employees, as we've had to overcome so much just to get out of bed in the morning. Lived experience is priceless. You know, that's brilliant, Kat. So I think Nikki would say that. I think that's a really good phrase. And there's only a couple of minutes left, and I'm really sorry for those that we haven't been able to get the questions in, but I'd just like to ask each of our speakers in turn just one last bit of advice, if you'd like to give to people who are disabled, who are either starting or grow business, one thing for them to take away. Hopefully they've taken a lot away from this morning. So we'll go in the order that we started. So perhaps Mark, Paul, then Nikki.
I would actually just say to people not, you know, not to give up. Just because someone says that you can't do it doesn't mean that it can't be done. You know, you need to follow your dreams, get the support that's out there, and just persevere, really. Because, as I said, you know, a lot of disabled entrepreneurs have actually overcome impossible odds to be successful. So if they can do it, so can you.
Excellent.
Very well done, Mark. So mine would be to do your research, really understand as much about where you're going to go and how to build the business, but really reach out and build a network. There's a lot of people out here wanting to help, and once you get into the networks, it's really powerful. So please reach out, and we'll find a way through for everybody.
And Nikki.
I think I would just say, you know, have a really strong vision of what you want to do, what you want to achieve, you know, what does good look like for you. And then, as Mark said, you know, if you don't give up with that. And I think through social media, you know, there are a lot of people out there that have done the thing that you're trying to do. And most people who are successful, in my experience, have time to help you. So try and sort of model those people, and yeah, just keep going back to that vision.
Yeah, and I have to say, Nikki, one of the things in your presentation that really struck me was the little building blocks with the words "I can't" and the little man kicking over the tea. And I don't know, that really struck me as a really good philosophy for business generally, but particularly perhaps in the context. So it just leaves me time to thank Nikki, thank Paul, thank Mark, thank Liz, thank Karen for this event this morning. There's some positive comments in the Q&A. The amount of questions we've had really shows that this is an issue that affects a lot of people. We are having 2 more FSB events based on our Business Without Barriers report. You'll see a card for them coming up in a little while. Again, please always check the FSB website to find more details. Go to our hub, find out the advice and support there, all under the Business Without Barriers logo. If you've enjoyed this morning, hopefully you have, by all means, drop us a line on Trustpilot. All these things help. And most importantly of all, just keep enjoying your business. As the last commenter said, Kat, you know, disabled people have achieved so much before they even get in the door. So after that, everything's a bonus. And we've seen examples there, some brilliant businesses. So I'm really excited to see how some of these businesses develop. So thank you again, everyone, for joining us. It's been great to see so many of you so engaged, and we look forward to seeing you at our next 2 events on a Business Without Barriers report. So thank you all, and enjoy the rest of your day. Is that just us now, Amy? I do apologise, Amy. I forgot to thank you. Very remiss of me. I'm normally very good at those things, but thank you anyway. And thank everybody. Thank you, Liz, being she's centre stage now.